And good morning and welcome back to Coffee with Toffees, guys. My name is Toffees, as always, bringing you your morning fix for Dota 2 news. You can find me on Twitter at Toffees_Dota2. You can find me over on the podcast, over on SoundCloud, on the RSS feeds. We're pretty much everywhere that you could possibly want to be to listen to the show. Also, remember that you can go to patreon.com, that's patreon.com/Toffees, if you want to help support the show and keep it organic. We're trying to keep the sponsors out. We've been approached, but we want to keep it as grassroots as possible. And great news, guys, we've hit our first funding goal. The goal is $25 a month to cover the cost of the show. We hit that thanks to some great donations over the week. Thank you so much, guys, and we're on to our next goal, which is to move us up into being able to afford to pay out the staff just a little bit. And speaking of staff, we've got a brand new producer on staff, Snuggies. You can find him at Snuggies Dota. Has come on board. He worked, I believe, went to Columbia and Chicago and did a bunch of work and training in specifically production for television. So we're glad to have him on board. And if you're hear from him, it means we're interested in having you on the show. So look forward to it. I'm also joined today by our guest. Jonathan is the name. You may know him as Cheech with a little bit of a bracket around the H. And he is the captain of Hot Hands Hand Warmers. Not the company, but the Dota team. How are you doing today, Jonathan?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Glad to have you here. Now, I've seen him for a while. His team has been playing since July. We'll talk a little more about that as we move forward, but just so that you know a little about him as he comments on some of the news that we're going to talk about. As I know him from the SCS, the Sunday Evening Cup series that I've been working on for a long time, or semi-pro, I should say, and his team tends to make it very far in that over the last couple of months, and then all of a sudden they popped up in the Dota 2 Canada Cup, where I was covering the qualifiers, and was excited to see them working their way through the brackets, earning their way into the main event, until they ultimately made it to the round of 8, where they went up against Complexity Gaming. And we'll talk a little bit about that, maybe even ask about the loss, as I'm sure it was tough to take, but I think also encouraging in a lot of ways, because they had to fight through so much qualifier to get there. So we'll get into that. They're a great team, a lot of fun to watch, and I'm going to talk to you about how they're my pick for up-and-coming amateur teams. But before we do that, we got to talk about the news, because that's why we're here. So the first thing up is Pro Dota news number 1. Denial Esports has announced that they are replacing Arbin with Funzi. I think Funzi is how you say his name. Now, I know what a lot of you were saying. Toffees, Denial Esports, really? Is this relevant to my life? They still play in tournaments. They're not as competitive as they once were. That said, maybe this change will bring them back into that Tier 2 grouping where we talk about them regularly. So I thought it was worth mentioning. I'm not overly familiar with Funzi, but definitely something that you should know, especially because there's not a lot of pro news going around right now. The second, are you familiar with either of those players, by the way, just out of curiosity, John? Cheech?
No, I'm not.
All right, so that's exactly what I figured. The Denial is trying to kind of put something new together. Maybe this will be the first step. Number 2, something that was a little bit of fun on Twitter the other day, a touch of levity between the big studios. So we all know that BTS and JD are constantly competing for contracts. The two major competitors as far as the studios in the limelight are concerned right now. And yesterday it was entertaining because we watched a game where Cap then tweeted out 70 HP regarding a hero's survival after a fight, to which LD responded with 75 HP, LMAO. And literally it turned into a Reddit fight between the two of them, but a friendly argument, I should say, about the actual HP. So it was a lot of fun to read. If you haven't checked it out, you can go over to Reddit and read the article. Both JD and BTS were all over the article, talking to fans, commenting on what happened, and having a general good time. And I thought that was really cool. Did you by any chance see that thread at all, Cheech?
Yeah, I saw it. It was pretty funny. Yeah,
I mean, it was nice to see that the studios are getting along to a certain extent, right? I mean, when you see that much money, there's been a huge influx of money in Dota. The idea that the two big studios can at least joke and talk jovially in a public forum is encouraging, because if you go to any other business model and you put those CEOs in the room together, they tend not to get along very well. So to me, I think it was nice to see that sort of back and forth, as well as let the fans enjoy it too. So the beauty of Reddit, the beauty of Dota 2 and the internet is that we all get to be involved with pretty much everything that happens. We are members of the boardroom in our own way. Next bit of news, we're going past pro news to tournament news, and there's a lot of this because the tournaments have been in full swing and they have been non-stop. If you compare the amount of tournaments we're covering this season to the amount of tournaments that went on last season, you are flubbergasted, knocked on your butt, or flummoxed, because it is crazy how many tournaments are going on. IG defeats VG in the Cena Cup final. For the staple for me, the high point was Ferrari. He ran a Tiny without an IO, and now you don't see that very often, right? I mean, Tiny is somebody who works well with the IO, who doesn't work well without him, in the sense of he just gets kited, can't move around the map very quickly. Well, Ferrari said, I don't need no stinking Wisp, and went 14-0-4 to help lead them to the championship. And they went the distance. They went to the best of 5. They played all 5 games, but IG came out with the big win over VG. So VG has not really, I think, been finishing where they want to be finishing since TI. And I wonder how that's going to affect the team morale going forward. Number 2, tournament series, the BH series, Bounty Hunter series. Have you had a chance to watch any of the Bounty Hunter stuff in the past, Cheech?
Yeah, I caught a couple games. I can't recall which ones, but
What do you think of the... So the format's interesting, though, right? I mean, the idea of they just bring these teams in for sort of a one-day throwdown, take home 15 grand or whatever the prize pool is for that particular event. What do you think of that format? Is it something that's pretty interesting, or do you think, I much prefer the tournament style?
Yeah, I mean, it's something new and different. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's not bad. I like it. Yeah.
Right. Anytime they're giving money to us as Dota people, that's good. So
yeah.
We won't argue. That said, though, we announced on Friday's show that it was going to be Na'Vi versus Empire in a one-sitting showdown for a bunch of cash. Unfortunately, Na'Vi has had to back out, and VP Polar, so Virtus Pro Polar, is now stepping in to take over for Na'Vi. So it'll be Empire versus VPP at 18 CET. So many abbreviations in that sentence today instead of Na'Vi, just so that you guys know. It should still be a pretty good game, but we'll get into that a little more later. Next piece of tournament information, Game 24 went on this weekend. It was a celebration put on by NVIDIA as a all things internet and computer sports, basically. Tons of fun. They ran a big tournament that ran through the weekend in a bunch of different sports, but they did do Dota. The championship, the grand final, was Team Tinker versus C9. And now, I've given C9 a hard time on the show in the past because they're always the bridesmaid, never the bride. These are the guys who are the kings of second place. I think they had something like 6 or 7 second place finishes this season so far alone. Well, good news for all you C9 fans out there. They finally did it. It's about time, boys. They take home the win. They get their share of the $7,000. Actually, no. They get their share of the big prize. $7,000 goes home with them. Pretty exciting. So, do you think, if you were in their situation, Cheech, and you had 6 second place finishes at majors this season already, how big a deal is taking home the first place finish at Game 24?
I mean, it's definitely got to be a big relief. I mean, they deserve it. They've always had the skill to take home a tournament win. They just never really managed to do it, and now they finally did. So I'm sure it's big relief for them.
Absolutely. The whole team finished the win and went, thank goodness. And now they got through. They got a nice win. Granted, EG... I don't believe EG was there, so it's a situation where C9, I think, still needs to get that win over EG for confidence purposes, but they're a step away from doing that. The next big piece of news, and this one is massive. If you take nothing away from tournament news today, this is the one you need to know about. Dota Pit Season 2 was announced. Now, Dota Pit Season 1 was not a big ordeal. In fact, myself and Gorgon were the lead casters on that tournament. The prize pool wasn't very big. There were some good teams in there, but nothing that, you would go, what? This is crazy. Well, Dota Pit Season 2 teamed up with High Ground TV, and I spoke with Greg, or What Is Hip, as you all know him, personally about the tournament. He said he took a good front foot on helping to organize a lot of the things going on, helping to talk to teams, and get them involved. All he needed the Dota Pit guys do was to really create a great prize pool, and they came through in spades. The prize pool is now $75,000 for this tournament, which is a pretty massive amount of money for this. and they are going to have a huge lineup. The lineup for the tournament that's now being exclusively covered by HGTV, which I think is fair considering the amount of work that Greg did to get this thing up and running, is going to be EG, Alliance, Cloud9, Virtus Polar, Complexity Gaming, Sneaky Nix Assassins, Moscow 5, Meet Your Makers, Team Empire, Fnatic, Team Tinker, Power Rangers, Secret, Navi US, Virtus Pro OG, and one that is yet to be announced. Now that is a pretty epic lineup. I mean, is there any team missing from that list that you're like, well, why aren't they there?
I mean, no, that's impressive. That's awesome.
Like, it's a who's who of the best teams in the world right now. Sans, of course, the Eastern team. So this is going to be a Western tournament almost exclusively. Now, the TBA, I don't want to rule anybody out just yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to find a Eastern team to bring in, or maybe an SEA team, since they're also woefully absent from this list. That said, though, as far as Western teams go, this is a phenomenal grouping. It's going to be a really great tournament. I'm incredibly excited about it. So keep an eye on that one. I think the HGTV guys are going to do a great job in this. They've done some stuff. They've been around. They did some Beyond the Stomach coverage. They went to qualifiers. They went to TI. That said, though, I think that this may be their big breakthrough. This is their first massive exclusive tournament, and I'm very excited to see what they do with it. Last piece of tournament news is the ESL 1 upper bracket update, boys and girls. Speaking of EG a couple times earlier, let's talk about him now. EG and Navi US, or Narvi as I still love to call him, crashed through the US qualifiers, as Gozu so eloquently put it, and will be going to the ESL 1 LAN finals. So pretty great work for them to come through the qualifiers so aggressively, and they will be in New York for all the fans to see. So if you were waiting to buy your tickets to see whether or not EG was going to make it, now you can, and it's always fun to see top U.S. teams showing up at a major U.S. LAN. So a lot of the fans will get a chance to see their personal heroes there, and I gotta imagine the hometown advantage is going to be huge for EG when they go to this thing in ESL 1 New York. You're not going by any chance, are you?
No, I'm from Texas, so something like that is.
I'm from Boston. I can't even make it to the thing, so
yeah.
It's unfortunately the tickets are a little bit high priced for the average accessibility, unless you really need to be there. And as much as I'd love to, I don't know that I can make it down there, as I'm still trying to pay for a morning show, let alone a ticket to an event. So that said, guys, that's your tournament news. Those are your big updates. Let's talk about the fun stuff. Let's do a little interview with our guest today. Now, Cheech, as said earlier, is the captain of Hot Hands Handwarmers. I've chosen them as one of my up and coming teams to look at in North America. Now, this I think is a pretty good thing to be chosen by, because based on SCS, or SECS as it used to be called, the last team that I chose for my up and coming amateur feature was the Sneaky Nix Assassins, and so far they've done very well for themselves in the last year. So hopefully Hot Hands can take that torch and run with it so that my picks continue to pan out. Now, first, I want to thank you, though, for waking up so early to join us today, Cheech.
Yeah, no problem, man.
I know it's early. I'm drinking coffee. I'm sure that you have things to do today, but let's wait to wake up so that we can spend the time with everyone who's interested in hearing about us. Now, question one. You guys are an up-and-coming North American team. Is your entire team from the North American region?
3 of us are, and 2 of us are from Canada.
Okay, so still North America, though.
Yeah.
So lots of North America. It's a North American team, almost an exclusivity. You guys have done well in the SCS and now in the Canada Cup, which you go to the round of 8, which is very, very respectable. You did lose to Complexity Gaming, and to put the cards on the table, it was a bit of a rough game for you guys. Now, I will say this. The thing that I appreciate, I watched the games, and I liked that you guys chose to draft outside of what I would call the meta, the way that it tends to be played right now. Was there a specific reason for that? Do you tend to try to be a meta breaker, or is it just that's the lineups you thought would work against Complexity?
That's just what we thought would work. Yeah, we tend to follow the meta, actually.
Okay.
Picks. But yeah, those games were pretty rough.
They were a little bit rough, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was a pretty high-octane stage. You went up against a team that's sponsored, that's made up of guys who have been playing in competitive esports for a very long time. So I think the fact that you were standing there with them was really encouraging. Now, you got this deep. Is this something that you did because, hey, we just want to have fun, we want to go or is this like we want to go the distance? We want to be spoken about in the same breath as teams like SNA, Complexity, UG, maybe even Narvi and EG at some point.
Yeah, we're definitely really competitive, and we didn't go into the tournament expecting to do as well as we did. We definitely, were optimistic about how well we could do. We knew we had the potential to, at least get past the qualifier, and maybe even get past the group stages. But yeah, we definitely weren't like expecting the results we had, and to be able to play Complexity was just awesome. For our first tournament, we had very little prep time. Scrimmed very little, and we just worked really well together. And even after the rough games, we were still extremely proud of ourselves.
Absolutely, I think you guys did a really great job with the way that played out. So, regarding the scrimming, I know you guys formed up and you started scrimming back in July sometime. You said that you thought you did well. So, let me ask you, how did it feel to do so well in what I would call your first major, your first tournament with major exposure? I mean, these games were getting 10, 20,000 viewers on Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, it felt awesome. We started thinking like, when we made a team, we were like, we just wanted to be competitive and potentially play great teams like Complexity or SNA and stuff, and be able to take games off of them. And the results we had for the first tournament, we were like, wow, well, maybe we can actually, maybe this dream is actually like something achievable.
Right. So it was a good confidence booster for you guys.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Now, you mentioned to me that you were added to a scrim group on Skype. Is that, now, a lot of our viewers aren't pros, or not potential pros just yet. Explain what it is, a scrim group on Skype. Like, well, what's the purpose of these things?
So if you wanted to scrim with like 5 of your teammates, or you can use the Dota 2 like team search function, and it's really hit or miss. Most of the time you're going to get paired against people that are just way inferior, and you're going to search for probably like an hour. It's crazy. The Skype group allows you to play against people that are well known in the community. They're really good. And you can just, they're nice, and it just allows you to skip that search queue and the randomness that you hit in the ladder.
Makes sense. Now, are there any teams that we would know that you've taken scrims off of in preparation, or is that something that we don't talk about?
Yeah, I don't think that's something we talk about. But, yeah, we've played well-known teams like Root and. Like the teams that always get to the finals in sex, they're always scrimming and stuff like that. But yeah.
Well, there you go. So he can't tell us about it, but they're out there playing the teams, getting that experience. I know that, now here's another question that I had for you. I know that one of your players is like 14 years old or something close to that. Is that right? Is it 14?
Yes.
Okay, so you've got a 14-year-old. You've got this adolescent junior hire. Is 14 junior high? I think it actually is. How does that affect the team? Are you allowed to swear in voice chat? And more importantly, does he have a bedtime? I mean, my SCS tournaments go pretty late. Is it ever like you're getting to finals and you hear mom going, you have to go to bed now?
Yeah, he doesn't really have like a bedtime that like gets in the way of anything. But yeah, there's like sex tournaments too. They usually do go pretty late, and luckily it hasn't been an issue yet. But yeah, he's. We swear and stuff, but like for being 14, he's probably the most mature 14-year-old like I've ever heard or seen or met. Like he's actually really well spoken, and he doesn't like freak out if you say something weird. So,
are you still in high school, or are you college, or how old are you, John?
Yeah, I'm in college. I'm 24.
Okay. So when you're walking through the mall with your friends in college or something like that, and you see a bunch of junior hires hanging around at the food court, do you ever think to yourself, "Good Lord, that's how old my teammate is"?
Yes. Yes, it's weird to think about because he's so good, and he's played like so little, and he's still very young. It's it's crazy.
So what is, just so that we know, because it sounds like this kid is going to be one of the future of esports North American players. What is his name? And do you think he has the potential to be in the pantheon of young champions, sort of like the Arteezys, the what do you call them? The young epic players who come out and can barely afford or be old enough to travel to foreign countries, but are able to do it because they're that good.
Oh, definitely. His name's Drop.
Mhm.
He's on the leaderboard for Dota, and yeah, I mean, I would definitely compare him to like an up and coming like Arteezy or Zai. Like
Okay,
the skill he's at for being so young is impressive, and
that's
he's
pretty.
still really into the game
Mhm.
and eager to learn, and that's something that's like just adds on to his potential.
Absolutely. So, guys, keep an eye on Drop. If nothing else, he's 14, already on the leaderboards. And if he is indeed as mature and as good as Cheech is telling us, then I expect to see great things out of him. And probably help, become a staple for Hot Hands as you guys move forward. So, we'll move into the next, as we talk about being staples and helping the team move forward. Let's talk about your spot with the team. I know you're the carry. I also know you're the shot caller, and I also know that you handle the draft. That is a lot of pressure for one man. How can one man have all this power?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Our team's just it's just worked. We're not like usually when we get out drafted, we're all pretty aware. It happens rarely, but when it does, we talk about it. We don't like freak out or anything. And shot calling is something that we've just grown into. Where, I mean, it's getting to the point where we're just all on the same page. That shot calling is just like so minuscule. It's kind of weird. Like the flow of the games is something that we all understand, and it's great.
That's awesome. So now you told my producer, Snuggy, when you chatted with him a little bit in the pre-interview, about an article that helped you guys break into the competitive scene, or at least prepare for that process. Tell me more about this article, and maybe just give me a little bit of some of the things, maybe some of the one or two things you picked up from it that really helped you sort of take the team to the next step.
Yeah, so in 2012, Fluff had a blog on complexity, talking about what he wished he had known when he was younger, getting into the scene, and I recommend everyone give it a read. It's great. It's what I would take the most from it is what I took the most from it is just the idea that you just treat everyone with respect, and those that are rude or toxic, you just mute them, get rid of them. Don't surround yourself by people like that, and also just networking, being connected to people that are well known in the community will help you get into the scene.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I definitely had a chance to look it over when I saw it come to me last night in the links, and it's a great article. It's over on complexitygaming.com/forums. You can find the old Fluff and Stuff post from 2012, and it's got some really good information. Very interesting to hear Fluff 2 years ago. Also interesting, and I think a show of gentlemanly showmanship that Hot Hands, you guys got defeated by Complexity Gaming in your tournament a couple of days ago, but still made sure that we knew about this article and linked us over to their website. So pretty nice. Now, my last question for you is, let's talk about the current meta. I talk about this with every guest that comes on, MSS, amateurs, pros, everybody who stops by the show. I say, let's talk meta. First and foremost, what do you think about it right now?
It's pretty stale, man. It's a struggle.
It's like that bread that you forgot to, or that pizza you forgot to put away, that it's like sitting there 2 days later and you're like, can I eat that? And you take a bite and you're like, it tastes okay, but then maybe it doesn't about 20 minutes later. So I agree with you. Stale pizza is a good way to define it. Now, here's the question though. What can we do to change that?
I mean, definitely some heroes need to be changed a bit. Like the ones you see every game probably would be a good start. Your Void, your Doom, your Viper, Razor, Skyrath, all those heroes are just extremely good at what they do, and it's kind of made the hero pool kind of dry as of late. And this death balls in general need to be tweaked a bit. Possibly changing towers, the amount of gold they give, how easy they are to kill. Stuff like that would probably be the best way to go about changing that.
It seems like tweak the towers is the general consensus among most of the pro, semi-pro players that I talk to. So, Ice Frog, if you're listening, tweak the towers. General census says it. Well, maybe we'll start a straw poll and then send it to you. That towers need to be changed just a little bit and find a way to get. I think the tower change would be the answer to things like Lycan and some of the push that we see coming out of these. You have to draft the DP. You have to draft a Lycan. You take you make the towers a little less valuable, and I think that they fall off. So right, I think you're right on track there. So that's our interview. That was pretty good. We got some great questions in. I really appreciate it. But in the interest of time, we're going to move forward, guys. This is a commuter show, not a day-long show. And we want to talk about our picks of the day. So all the games being played today, my pick, number one pick for me, is the game between Empire and Virtus Pro Polar. The change-up from the Navi substitution will be on the Bounty Hunter series in a couple of hours. And I think that those two teams are very evenly matched, and I think that they both have a very aggressive style. So I think VPP is going to come out with the win, but I still think that it should be a very good game. Cheech, what are your picks? What's your pick for the day?
Cloud9 versus Alliance for the ESL1 qualifier. I enjoy watching both these teams, and they're just so, in my opinion, evenly matched. Even though Cloud9's coming off a big win, I think that's going to be some great Dota.
Absolutely. Cloud9 is coming off of a big win, guys. So that means that they've got momentum on their side. I think that there's something like a 8% favorite over Alliance currently over on Dota Lounge. But taking Alliance down is going to be another big confidence booster for them. So this is a big game for Cloud9 to keep rolling forward. That said, they will be playing Fnatic prior to the game. So they are going to have a little bit of fatigue to deal with, whereas Alliance is coming in fresh first game of the day. So it should be a pretty interesting matchup. I like that pick. Guys, that's our show today. Remember, if you like the show, follow me on Twitter at Toffees_Dota2. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning with your Dota news. And if you're following, you'll know exactly when we're going to be on. Also, a big shout out to Snuggies, our brand new producer, for joining the team free of charge. He's currently working for free, as am I, as we believe in this show and want to see it grow. So I'm glad to have him on board. The podcast will be live in about 40 minutes. You can get through the RSS, through the SoundCloud, through the YouTube. It's pretty much everywhere that you want to be. And last but not least, if you want to help fund the show, patreon.com/Toffees, patreon.com/Toffees is literally how you keep us from having to get sponsors or taking to a big studio. We want to keep it grassroots, and the way to do that is to help us cover our costs, basically, and keep us running. So do that if you like. If nothing else, go over there and just send us some happy words to say, hey, we love the show. Thanks for having it on. Just to keep us encouraged, because it is a lot of work, but a lot of fun at the same time. Last words, Cheech, before we wrap up the show?
Just follow my team on at Hot Hands Dota. And thanks once again for having me on. It's been an honor, and thanks for the opportunity. No problem.
So at Hot Hands Dota, guys, make sure you check out my pick for up-and-coming team that I think is going to be breaking into some of the larger tournaments in the near future. That said, we've got some big guests coming up. We'll be announcing them on Twitter over the next week or so that I think you guys will really be excited about as well. A big thank you to Cheech for being here. A big thank you to all of you who are listening, whether it is live or on a replay. You are what makes the show possible and great, so thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. Hopefully your workout or your drive went well, as it seems like we're a very popular show for taking to the gym. I appreciate you doing that. And of course, I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. And as always, Toffees out.